Hi everyone, this is your favorite friend Jay or Jacqueline Salah as you formerly know her, film critic at Geek Vibes Nation, In Session Film, and Keith Love Movies. Today I'm joined again by my wonderful friend, Kristin Baristella, who is always there covering from America, talking to her friend Jacqueline from Alexandria, Egypt about films, especially one of our favorite actors ever, Guy Pearce, or as we lovingly call him, the Pearceness. And today we're going to discuss The Convert, which is a movie that bedazzled both of us. We were both just mesmerized by it. I'm going to read you a quick summary of the movie. Okay, so it's a historical drama film directed by Lee Tamahori. Wait for my interview with the great director, starring Guy Pearce, Tioreore Ngatai-Melbourne, Jacqueline, McKenzie, and Kohe Tuhaka. Okay, so The Convert, hopefully I got all the names right. Tioreore. I love The Convert. Honestly, gave it a really positive review. And I was waiting, dying for Chris to join in because Chris always has like this unique point of view. She's like a guru. She's like reviewing everything. She has all the Pierce filmography covered down to a T. So I want to ask her first, what was your first impression upon seeing The Convert, Chris?
I feel like I've been waiting for this movie for a long time. It frustrates me that it has like a 2023 because of its festival releases. And I was a little nervous actually because TIFF, it had kind of middle of the road kind of reviews. And then now that it's come out in wider, supposedly wider release in the US, but it's like 2 theaters in California or something. There's been, praise for it, but then there's also been people that have kind of been some negative reviews. So first I didn't know what to expect, but I really enjoyed it the first I saw it, and then I saw it again and I enjoyed it more. And then I watched it a third time, and then, I said to you, we need to talk about this. I knew I was gonna, I can't barely pronounce normal names when we discuss things, and I'm thinking, how am I gonna pronounce all these names on a video? So please forgive me, but I feel like maybe people expected it to be some big, huge epic, and I keep honing in on these words. I don't know if these definitions really matter, but maybe people were expecting something major, new, and massive and profound, and I don't think that's this kind of movie. But I found it very poignant instead. That it was very personal, just a very kind of small, not a day in the life, but a very sort of simple A to B kind of journey, lesson learned. So I feel like the movie does what it sets out to do, and I think it's really lovely in doing it. And I really enjoy it. I bedazzled. I think of real flash and bling if you say the word bedazzled, but I do think it is a lovely, beautiful little film.
I fell in love with this film. Like the moment I just saw Guy Pearce, like in the bottom of the ship in the storm, and when he was riding the horse, I knew I was in front of something epic. Besides, I feel like the Maori culture was just spectacularly outlined here. I didn't feel like it fell into any trope. There was no white savior. There was no the noble savage, which I kind of hate. Or you feel like there's kind of like stripping bare the beauty and the brutality of tribes and of people living in like these parts of the world. So I don't want to know, first of all, for you, did you feel like there was any white savior, white commentary trope in this? Or like me, you felt like, no, it was, for me, it was more like a witness on the events, like someone who was just there in the events, but he wasn't really contributing to it. I want to know your take.
I didn't think it was white savior, and bless her, I love her. Our friend Nadine Whitney at InSessionFilm.com, in her review, she said she didn't like that white outsider perspective, that she didn't think it needed it, and I understand, not just thematically, but filmmaking wise. I don't think the movie would have been made if it did not have a name white lead to it to get, its financing. And I like the way you say observer, because I just thought of it now. He almost seems more like an embedded war correspondent, because he has this notebook and he's drawing everything as it's going on. And he's supposed to be kind of this lay minister. So he is supposed to be slightly outside of the societies in a way. But yet he's got this personal experience that he has to go through as well. So I didn't see it as white savior at all. Even though, I guess you expect that with the white horse. And that is actually a really cool moment when he comes up out of the water with the horse. I don't usually like to watch a lot of like interview things before I see a movie, but I did watch a couple because I was waiting so long for this. And there were so many people that kept pointing out, oh, that scene with the horse is so cool. That's so cool. And I'm like, what is the scene with the horse they keep talking about? And then it's like him like swimming with a horse to coming up riding it on the beach. I'm like, well, okay, that is cool. And it is a white horse. And I guess I do like the way that they do kind of play on that in like visual style, but it turns out to be something very different that, and it's not, I don't know, it's not a spoiler to say the title, The Convert. You presume he's there to convert people, but it's him who goes on the spiritual journey.
Him.
But yet the movie's not about him. Where I feel like if it were something like Last Samurai, Tom Cruise or something, we would have opened with like this epic action, like trauma, battlefield, like his entire history, or kept having flash like nightmare back to it kind of things, like to make it all about his experience. And this movie doesn't do that at all. It's like, yes, that's there in the background, but that's just what's making him relatable to these people in a way. So I don't see the negative of the whiteness at all, but the opposite of that, we do recognize when we see the nasty white villagers. We see them for who they are, certainly.
They're the worst. Like, I love that they actually make white, like they don't try to make the Maori people like some kind of angels or saints, but at the same time they kind of show you at least these people fight with honor. They like fight each other, and they're just there out there. They don't feel bad for killing each other. They know that land matters. But sneaky white people are always there under false pretenses, like, oh, we're saving, like, oh, we're just, it's religion, it's, like, oh, we have to protect, we have to take care, and it's always just a bunch of lies. They're the sneakiest, sleaziest characters, and I just can't stand most of them. So yeah, I mean, for me, there was nothing remotely even that made me feel like cringy or felt like, oh, no, stop, don't shove it in my face. It wasn't like this journey where everything, the land and the indigenous people were prepping this white guy for glory. No, it was actually, he was part of the conflict and he just went along with the beauty of it. One of the characters, two characters actually that I love, Rangimai, who is like the beautiful Tioreore Ngatai-Melbourne. And you have, of course, Charlotte, who is Jacqueline McKenzie. I want to know your take on both, because I feel like, first of all, the connection between them is just beautiful. The wisdom you have, like, as if it's like the three stages of the women, like the virgin, the maiden, and the crone. And you have them, the three of them coexisting together. The virgin or the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Yes, I have to remember. I picked this up. And then you have both of them dancing together. It's not even Pearce teaching her to dance. It's actually Charlotte teaching the young Maori girl to dance. And I think it's one of the most beautiful scenes taking place in the forest. And somehow Charlotte reminded me of you. It's this woman who has this enchanting quality about her. She's there. She's actually very wise, although you're kind of not wise. And then she has this energy inside of her, I think, that attracts a lot to her. And of course, Pearce kind of like is attracted. So I don't know your take on both of those beautiful female characters.
Jacqueline McKenzie, I didn't even know she was Australian because I had seen her on the 4400, a US TV show many years ago that I adore, and her accent was flawless. I had no idea. So like she has to do like all the major work really in this movie. She's the one who's speaking both languages, but she's supposed to be an Irish convict. So she's got an Irish accent on top of, correcting his pronunciations of all these words and translating in go-between, which again is another thing, I guess. I don't know, in another movie, they would mystically know how to learn the language really quickly, easy or something. The fact that it takes its time to stop and translate everything, that there is a middle person in between. So she has to do all this. So was respected by the Maori. There's no Y. In the West, for some reason, we get a Y stuck in there, and it's
I kind of cheated. Like I heard them saying Maori, so I was like, yeah, Maori.
But she's, you would think the Lord of the Rings appendices. That's my only experience.
You're the expert here.
But she's respected by them. But then she was also cast out by them because her husband has passed. But then she's also like not totally non grata to the village people, even though she's white. But so I was really surprised that they, had like an older woman with this history that she takes the time to explain everything, so I really, appreciated that. Like, also not stereotypical, like medicine woman type sagey kind of thing, like a realistic kind of woman with her own kind of past, and he says, can't you have a little faith in the situation? She says, well, I have faith in you. There's only a few scenes that are though out of his perspective, and so like when they're like bird calling and dancing in the woods and everything. And when she's getting her dressed up for the dance and everything, and the Tioreore, I like the Hunt for the Wilder People, and she's in that. And she was really impressive, again, in non-English dialogue for the majority of the film. And also their sort of sing-song laments that they are doing, so she has a lot of like, she knows what's going on with the character, but the audience doesn't know, and she has to completely convey that, and she completely does. I mean, it's she can be fierce, but she can be very sensitive and tender. And we didn't even say, of course, the greatest thing is, of course, it's not the white guy and the native princess, getting together. Yeah, like I completely love their relationship. I think one of the few things that some of the village folk get correct is when they say that she's his ward, and when he's dancing with her, they're having a good time. And then I love when there is a battle scene, and when he finally does kind of, break down and let it all out. And I absolutely adore that moment where she comes up behind him and she just hugs him and holds him. And then when they just kind of look at each other at the end of everything, and he can kind of smile and nod, and like they just have this really beautiful kind of relationship of like this, they are kind of connected in this experience, forever. And it's so lovely. There's the
you're gonna get emotional.
Sorry.
Which brings us to Thomas Munro. I mean, I love Munro. Okay, I think Pearce elevates every performance he's in. I want to know your full take, and I'm not gonna take from your time talking about him, lady, because I'm still stunned by this man. Can you believe that after this filmography, he still brings this energy to the character and layers? So I don't know your take on our beloved protagonist.
True. Yes, I've been going through this Guy Pearce career rewatch, and this is why I follow him, because every time I watch one of his movies, there's always one moment where I'm like, he did it again. I'll be actually talking about bedtime stories too with Bubba on another podcast, and it's like he has this stupid minute of like a sing song and on this bad movie, and I'm like, he did it again. So yeah, there's moments in this movie where I was like, he did it again. And even my husband made fun of me, of course. He's like, why are you getting this movie? He's like, you're only getting this movie for Guy Pearce. And I said, well, no. I said, I would be interested, again, because the only thing I know about, Haka is I saw Lord of the Rings appendices, that I wanted to see this because it was by Lee Tamahori. And yes, Pearce got me to watch it faster because I'm so far behind on new movies. But I don't know if people felt like it was going to be like Apocalypto, and I'm like, it's not going to be epic, and it's not like Mel Gibson like raging out Braveheart, all about him awesome. It's actually a much more quiet kind of film, made with local tenderness and appreciation. And so like I was like, oh, okay, I if Guy Pearce supports this, it has to be decent, because I don't think he picks bad films. And I really love that he's actually powerful and being very subdued in this, because like I said, it's a lesser actor would make the movie all about themselves, would make every scene about themselves. Even when he does have this confessional revelation kind of scene, the camera's not on him the whole time, even as he's breaking down in this emotional scene. It's very much more of an expose, where, because it has to be translated, he's telling it to the chieftains, he's kind of in this awkward situation, like at this audience with the chief, and he's explaining his past. And I really love his look in this movie, because he has like short hair and a goatee, which, I mean, I'm not up on like my male looks of 1830, but obviously everybody else has either long hair or full beards or is clean shaven. Like, this is kind of an unexpected kind of style. And I like the idea that, like, as he says, trauma's been happening for a while, but I like the idea that it's the experience that aged him, not that he's an older man. In a way, like when you have such a shock experience, like it makes your hair go white. So I really like the look of that. He's got this trauma, but he says that he's supposed to be a layperson, and this is God sent him here, but he doesn't seem to know like a lot of biblical things, which I find kind of amusing. I love, you see him practicing in the church. And it's so funny when they're singing the hymn is actually How Firm a Foundation, which clearly the villagers do not have a very firm foundation in their faith. I mean, the doctor's like, oh no, I can't help, the native, I only serve the white people. You're like, but you're a doctor, dang it. And like he doesn't even, maybe 2 or 3 times, I think do you see him actually within his church? And there's lots of scenes where he's just outside the doors or just in the porches. Like he kind of doesn't belong in the interiors. Like he seems like he does more belong in the outers. And when they say like, no, you worship our God, they worship, like leaves and twigs. And I'm like, but it's the same thing, isn't it? I mean, when you're a spiritual person, shouldn't it be nature is an example of your God? So it's funny. The third time I found this to be very kind of a spiritual in many ways. Even if he's not, he is on this spiritual journey, just maybe not in the way like the Victorian God, well, not yet Victorian at the time, but the way, you would presume he finds something else along the way. And I love that it's very subdued. He doesn't have, some big epic moment. And I wish there would be a chance for him to get some supporting accolades. I think because he's top billed, I think it doesn't count, but he's not the star of the movie, but we'll see. I think he's far overdue for awards acclaim, but
I feel awful that you just watch a great performance like that and then you realize that the dynamics for the awards, it's all about, like, you can feel the conversation oozing with particular names. But what if I watched a movie, it was actually released this year, guys, and it fits the time, but none of the you is talking about it and nobody's talking about it, and the award, like entities or organizations or whatever, I'm not going to listen to it. So it just feels sad, like this would get overlooked. He's done a lot of great work here. And seriously, like he always does, like you can never imagine that he never had the Oscar nomination, right? You're there.
No.
Oh my God. Like, okay, don't get me started.
No, I mean, we could say 5 or 6 if we were really stretching it, that he deserved. And I like that, especially today's actors, you can tell when they're picking a role that this is their Oscar bait role. And he expressly does not choose that in his career wise, which I mean, recently he's flat out said, hey, he had divorce films he had to make, or that he's filming more things in Europe because that's where his family is now, and so I really appreciate that. And it's sad to think that we base films defined on how the awards wins will fall. I think that's such a ridiculous and unnecessary bar, because it's like, this is a really poignant movie that I'm going to remember far more than who the heck won the last awards or something.
I don't think anyone will remember Dylan. I'm sorry, it's not released yet, but I don't think we'll remember it ever. So yeah, I mean, like, there are many movies that I'm watching this year, and I feel like, well, I know you guys are gonna get award hype, but I know that I will forget all about you. Thank you very much. So I totally agree with what you're saying, and I also like 2 things. First of all, the language barrier. I love it when always you feel like in the film people are struggling to express, because I feel like this is, again, I think I've said it before, it's all about communication, how we communicate our ideas, from which background are we in, do we understand the slang, do you understand like what each one of us is coming from, the background. So the language barrier makes it so difficult for the characters even to express themselves and understand each other. Tell me, I feel like you have something.
Well, the idea that he communicates better with the people that he kind of half knows the language compared to the villagers when he is speaking the same language. Like when there's, and I think some of the people were complaining that some of the early scenes or there's extra things that lag. And I feel like those things are necessary to reveal like what the villagers are like. There's like this, forbidden little romance moment, and there's a death, and if there's one Catholic person who basically can't wait to leave. He says that the place is a crock, and he is dispensed with by the other people, not because he's Catholic, but because their business and trade competition, he's eliminated, and they claim that he's killed himself. And Monroe, again, who's not even the super religious person, flat out says like, but he was a son of Rome. He would not do that, and like. So the idea that even, and they're like, you owe us. We built your church. We built like your cabin. You've been paid to service us. And he's like, whatever, bye. So the people that are speaking the same language, aren't even on the same page. And they asked him what he thinks of their little village or something. And he says it's like a sculpture that we're all just not quite hewn yet from the stone. Our form hasn't taken shape, And it's like, well, that's, I think, more. I don't think he realizes he's speaking about himself maybe at that moment, but the idea that they think that they're bound by the little village and they built something really great. And it's like, it's so precarious, like the way, like there's beach and water kind of in between them and everything. So it's like the people that you would think you can communicate with is clearly where he does not belong. And I love how the stages visually represent that communication, because at first he he's very formally dressed in more like black kind of cleric clothing, and then he's not wearing the top hat. Then he's in just more regular kind of clothing, and then like there's parts where like he leaves his boots off, and so it's like the visuals paralleling the communications and advancing the characterization, I think is very well done.
Definitely. And I also love the idea that we get to see different kinds of mourning, of intense feelings, because for me, as someone, like from a different culture, whenever you see a Western movie and people are like in a funeral and stuff, and you realize, wow, people don't really cry and mourn the dead, because Egyptian culture is really heavily invested in death and in mourning and in lamenting the dead, and the days that take the wake kind of like takes on long days. So to see someone kind of like self-harming in a way, sorry, to the fact that she's kind of like tormenting herself for losing her husband and the chance she makes. It was, for me, it was stunning and it was beautiful. And it made me realize that I love film so much because it opened my eyes to different parts of the world, different places where you just feel emotions can vary, but also connect you. So I just like these stunning little tidbits of it. So although it had some kind of, okay, it was like you said, it was a toned down, a non-epic film. It was more like kind of like low key, but it had some stunning battle scenes. And I love the battle scenes so much. So what did you think of them? And how do you think like the expectations of it becoming something grandiose and, like very epic war drama might have made people go in with a little bit of disappointment? I wanted your take on this.
But yeah, I guess people expect like some kind of God mode or something. I mean, did people expect like apocalypto, like either side, like all the time, and not in their languages, and repeated epic battles, and maybe they mentioned cannibalism, or you do see some blood splatter. But actually, I mean, compared to some other things we've had today, I didn't necessarily think this one was that brutal or that bloody or gory and violent. But like Lawrence McCoy, who plays multiple parts in Lord of the Rings, like he's the other chieftain, the rival chieftain, and when they're all on the beach and they're doing it, they're getting ready, they're screaming and yelling. I'm kind of like this. Okay, yeah, I wouldn't want to face these people in battle. No, absolutely not. And the irony that like I don't think Monroe necessarily has any beliefs per se. Like I feel like I read some things where people said like the character was too plain or something, but it's like I don't think he really knows anything religiously, but the things that he says, like you said, maybe communication doesn't always come across. The things that he says are taken out in a different context than he realizes. Like when they say, okay, who should we kill, because the village, slighted us, he says, well, why can't you just raise their rent? Like he's very just anti-war and just a very much of a pacifist. And then when he goes to the other chief for the meeting and he brings the gifts, I don't even think he realizes that he's bringing like jade, like weapons, like the kind of paddle and like the knives and like, so it's like you have these people in the middle who clearly don't understand what's happening, and the way they use his knowledge, and I don't want to spoil, but
spoiler alert, this whole video is a spoiler. Don't watch until you watch the film.
no, but like he tells them about his own battle experience, and instead of that being, yes, it's a confessional catharsis to him, but the chief is like, oh, that gives me an idea.
Exactly.
And they fight because they have to. They're not being the snotty villagers who are wheeling and dealing, as Ripley says in Aliens, screw each other over for the percentage. And even it's a few times that Ragamahi speaks in English, and she says like revenge and death are hand in hand, and they understand this. She had been previously married, and her husband is killed, but then like there's other, like he says, like you need to unite together, or else the white people, they want to give you muskets, they want you to end yourself, so there's less of you to win, and take over everything, and it doesn't turn out as he expects at all, which I really love. It's the white person, was not that he was wrong, but things just turned out for the better.
Exactly.
Without him lording all over it and everything. So it's like, I love that the movie didn't, take everything out and make everything epic, and like you didn't have to pick your side. I think that we needed that kind of the white person misunderstood viewpoint.
And also, wasn't it stunning to see him in the end with the Maori, like tattoos all over? He looked amazing.
That's another thing, because I watched some of those interviews waiting. I had seen, it's funny because I saw videos, interviews, because he was promoting something else while he was filming this, and at first he didn't have them, and then I noticed, like, wait a second, he has tattoos on his arms, which I was really excited because I mean, Memento, you know, like he's had other films with tattoos, and I was like, wait, he has tattoos? Like, oh wait, what is this now? And then when he was done the filming, he still had them, and I'm like, oh wait, these are real, these are really his. And I was waiting like to, you know, for interviews for this, and then he posted on Twitter that he also got more. He got more all down like his shoulders and everything. And I was like, oh my God, this is really exciting. Like, I want to know the story behind these, because all I kept thinking again was like Vigo getting his haka and having to face bump everybody, and Lord of the Rings, everybody getting their little tattoos. And I'm like, I need to know the story about this. And then when we finally got to do these interviews with when people talking about the convert, he was talking about how his family had been from New Zealand, and there had been like his relative had died during the making of this, and that he got the tattoos, and he was explaining that they were for his family, his father who had died, and his son. And he said that this infuriated so much. He said that this was a profound filmmaking experience for him. And he just said this in multiple interviews, and every interviewer just went on with like, well, hey, so tell me about Lee, or hey, you know, that scene with the horse was so cool, how did you film that? And I'm just like, you don't want to follow up on that question.
Exactly.
You know, like you don't want to explain of like the significance of the tattoos and of the look of these people, and this is why we make film and art, that this will impact you, you know. And I'm like, that's so disappointing.
I totally get what you mean. Wow. I even talking to some of my, you know, like kind of local actor friends and stuff like that. And they always tell me that actors throw in these things for the interviewer to kind of like question, like they're throwing clues, man. Come on, question them, see what they're interested in, instead of, you know, like having this list of, you know, yada, yada, yada. Like he's throwing in stuff for you. Come on, eat it, take it as bait. But no, unfortunately, it's a disappointment most of the time, but hopefully someday we get to interview him and then we can ask the right questions, darling.
Sure, you can do that. Yeah.
I hope.
I'm sorry. Did I answer what you originally asked, that I just lumped on that tattoo thing? I'm sorry.
Definitely. Girl, you're answering everything. But if you like have because I feel like you have a lot to say about this film, just tell me.
And I'm sure when we're done, I'll be falling
You will
asleep at night.
keep, yes, you will follow up and
I'll
tell
think
me.
of more things to say.
Yes, exactly. So do you feel like it satisfied you? Like the character arc of Thomas Monroe? Did you feel like it fulfilled you? Like, did you feel that it was really, really well done and like held from all angles?
That's interesting the way you said that, because I wasn't expecting a character arc at all. I mean, the whole way that people were promoting this movie was that it was Maori culture, and you know, that there was going to be these epic battle scenes. And again, that's all the interviewers seemed to want to discuss. And everybody else was saying that it seemed very meddling, that the script seemed weak. And when I saw it, I was like, well, no, I like what the movie doesn't say. Maybe that's also one of the things that I really enjoy about Pearce's performances, is that, you know, as you can see, I'm a very talkative person. You know, I'm a writer where it's always the words to say. My husband asks, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm looking at a sentence that I've rearranged 10 different ways, you know. And there are times when he does not need to say anything on screen. And which is, again, you say really beautiful in the communication of this, that's, to me, it was a journey. Maybe it's not very long of a movie, or time-wise, I guess they're in the village long enough that she learns to pick up things. You don't know really necessarily how long they're there, but the idea that like you have the half of the village and then the half of the Maori things, and the interiors are I like that they kind of look like kind of orange. They're kind of dim maybe, but that's period accurate. But the idea that it's almost like once we're in the Māori side, we're not inside anymore. Everything is outside and bright and colorful, and it's like the two halves of your life. And even you get those bookends in the beginning. There's lovely moments about this. The tattoos in the face mean like the story of your life so far, and you get like these bookends at the beginning and the end, and it's like, oh, that's so beautiful.
Wonderful. So beautiful. It's a beautiful film. Like I feel it's a visual feast. Like everyone, I don't know, I'm not gonna say everyone, but I mean like at least you will be entertained. You will watch something beautiful. Like the picture is just spectacular. Cinematography is just.
I want it on DVD, because I almost feel like every frame is something beautiful. I mean, when he's and I absolutely adore The Searchers. Is my favorite movie of all time. And there's again many motifs of people who are inside of the little Victorian house out in the middle of the desert that doesn't belong there, or the way like John Wayne never comes inside. He stays inside the door frames. And there's like a beautiful shot of him sitting outside the door frames. And there's the shots of that where she's on the back of his horse and they're riding past a waterfall, you know, where there's just, but then there's also where they're all like at the haka, you know, like I feel like, you know, every frame of this, I feel like is also telling a story. And
Definitely.
I do love the music and the dialogue, but I think one time I watched it late at night actually on a lower volume where it was, and I was almost kind of like, even without sounds,
You can
it's
watch it
a
on mute.
beautiful film that the emotion comes across.
Yeah, and I think just like continuing on what you're saying, I feel like the dialogue is kind of like not the main power of this, or they don't want it to be the main power because it's actually people are talking different languages. They want you to just absorb the experience and feel what people are experiencing. Maybe resonate with the moments of silence or people who are interacting either with each other. Like even when you see like the white girl and the Maori boy and they're in love, you don't see like a single word being said, but you feel like it's shot in a very subtle way, although it ends in tragedy. But I just love the idea that you can observe a film and kind of like reminisce on it and just think about it later. And think about even Monroe and his loneliness in this land and how he grows with it and how it grows on him, kind of like trees. So yeah, I mean, I would recommend this film to everyone. I would recommend, like Guy Pearce's performance to be analyzed and written about extensively. And I want to know, who would you recommend this film to, Chris? Would you recommend it to your husband?
And well, he probably wouldn't watch it because
He
he'd
will
say,
kill us, I think.
That's typically the way you say it. Like he seems to sleep better when he's like taking a nap, like up against a tree outside. And like there's a murder in the church, and that's like the last time he's in it. And the idea that like, and even at the end when the chiefs finally have their confrontation, it's like it's even they are in silence. They speak the same language and they're in silence because their ways are just understood. And I feel like this is a film for understanding, I suppose. Anyone who's looking for something like, I don't know, not I don't think that it's highbrow. I actually think it's a very straightforward, entertaining film. I don't think you can necessarily, as I said, I don't think it's like a profound, mind-blowing epic. Maybe we're all expecting everything to be a masterpiece every single time. I find that so insufferable,
And
that everybody
why? Why do we
loves their
want
film.
masterpieces?
It's like I just love a film that it's like this is just a nice personal little story. And I feel like maybe it's gotten better the more times I've watched it.
It gets
And
better with every watch. Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think like the idea that every film has to be award worthy, best film in the world, and then you see people confused because there are films that are hyped by advertising, by all the Twitter chatter, and then people go and watch them and you feel the disappointment, even with like two particular films. I felt people were disappointed with them. Maxine and Trap. And I feel like they write good stuff, but it's as if it's held back. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was cool, but guys, I don't think you like it. So I feel like, okay, we don't have to fall in love with the movie, find it the greatest movie ever made, which is why I'm like excited, for instance, to watch, like Kinds of Kindness by Yorgos Lanthimos, because I want to follow his career. I want to follow his filmography. I don't want every single movie he makes to be the best epic, spectacular movie because nothing has to be. So I'm glad we're finally talking about this conversation of not everything having to be like grandiose and wonderful and just
well, I mean, I think Trap's been out 2 days now. I haven't seen it yet. And within a couple hours, like people were complaining it wasn't screened for critics. And then within a couple hours, people were spoiling it. And I'm like, well, this is why it wasn't screened for screened for anybody in advance. Like you're already ruining it, people loving it or hating it. And I'm like, I'm already over it. Like hype is not what's going to sell a movie for me at all. I'm much more curious about, the films that people aren't talking about. Why are films slipping, through the cracks? And like I said, this initially premiered Western at TIFF and was very middle of the road. I don't know if there were things that were simply just better at TIFF, or even I don't understand the whole festival experience. I feel like how many people can watch something so rushed? Do you don't have enough time maybe to just ponder or contemplate one film? And I feel like maybe this is what this film kind of does. Like, I mean, I ended up thinking that it was actually a very spiritual film, even though
very spiritual.
the whole point of it, it's just not what you
And
expected
exactly.
spiritually, perhaps. So I don't know, in the rush of all our instant fast-paced movies, I guess a little tender film like this could get lost, and I feel like that's unfair. And I'd like to see that Tioreore, because I've seen her in Hunt for the Wilder People and I've seen her in this, and it's as much as I love, I'm glad that these non-Western stories are being made. I also would love to see her in something where she's playing something that's not defined by
Exactly.
her nationality and her heritage. So like this is what infuriates me about Avatar. Like you're making a movie about colonialism, then you're covering up West Studi and CCH Pounder with blue paint. It's like, stop.
Shut up, man. Can't stand it. I
So
agree. Avatar
I
is
want
well.
to see more. And as opposed to, speaking of Hunt for the Wilder People, like I kind of really fallen out of in love with Takiti Waititi, but see, I'm over him. But Lee Tamahori, I've been up and down with. You know, Die Another Day, I think starts out really excellently. I mean, with the
And
whole
something
like way that
happened.
the Korean, like North Korea hostage stuff is interplaying within the Bond credits, that was very well done. But then as the movie just gets so bogged down in like 50th anniversary, like other Bond homage, and by the time you're with like the invisible car, you're like, what happened in this movie? You know, like, so I've been in and out of love with him. And then if he's older now, I feel like people think that this movie was, I don't know, edited or was chopped up or something, or doesn't say what it's supposed to do. I think it does exactly what it says it's going to do on the tin. I feel like this is the movie he set out to make. I mean, he's, how old is he? 80 something, you know? Like, if this is the story he wanted to tell, just this one moment in time of, hey, a white person meets more people, and guess what? Joins them, you
He
know,
joins them. He runs with the world.
understands them, gets them, you know.
Are you big
So
on Avatar? Because you like the genre girl. You
no,
don't like, thank you. Oh,
no.
so glad, Chris. I know I
Sorry.
love him. I'm so happy. I kind of hate it. So I really hate it. Yay. Yeah. You don't like James Cameron. You're not even into Titanic.
No, to me, James Cameron before Titanic is every movie knocked out of the park excellent. I think
For
after
me,
everything just becomes super bloated and ridiculous, and you begin to put the style over the substance. And as visually beautiful as The Comfort is, the style is not put over the substance.
no, 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 no.
I mean, the fact that the biggest parts of the movie are when you have people talking with a go-between in their communication, or not speaking at all, just looking at each other and understanding. You know, so I found that very beautiful, you know, that you don't need, you know, words to communicate if you're, you know, on the same spiritual page, you know.
Okay. Anything new for our dear Guy Pearce? Because you're the Pierce expert of the pair. So you tell me
Well,
what's up and new.
I hope that they were filming at there's a supernatural western that they're supposed to be doing with Wanda Wise called Killing Faith, that they were supposed to be filming. So it's like, okay, you had me at supernatural western. Like, okay, please do.
Please do.
And
Wow.
Brutalist is coming out in Venice shortly, festival season, which again is supposed to be a 3-hour movie, and he has a supporting part. I hope in a 3-hour movie that there is a substantial enough. I have already seen long lists that are presuming that this is an awards type film, so
Hopefully we get something for him. Oh my God. Okay, we can get this movie and review them. We have to support the Pierce.
we'll see. I still have a lot of, you know, coverage. I've been going through my rewatch.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, what is new with you, Chris?
um well, yeah, going through this Guy Pearce career rewatch, which I've been doing since the pandemic. I started and then I stopped, and then, you know, real life things interfered. So this was a lot of stuff that I intended to do last year that I'm just getting a lot of the articles and content and everything out now. So, and yeah, it's nice, I guess, having a lot of deadlines and a lot of different outlets. You know, it doesn't mean that I'm getting a lot of these bigger like DIY projects done that I used to do, but it's nice to have deadlines and be like, oh, hey, you know, maybe there's people actually who care that I'm bothering to talk about Guy Pearce.
Yes, like
I've been doing so forever. And I said that to my husband. I said, I love that he got these tattoos. And I said, but now I'm kind of a little disappointed, because does this mean, I said, in a silly, and I didn't even mean it in a superficial way. I said, now does this not mean that he's going to have his shirt off as much in movies? Because what I really appreciate is when he's doing like something like The Proposition, where it's like, it's just so bodily, like visceral and raw. And my husband's just like, not even thinking like that I meant something saucy. I didn't, but he's just like, it's okay. They can cover them up if they.
I was like gonna tell you, make up. No, the Pierce will be again bare chested and wonderful. They will cover all the tattoos. Rest assured, darling, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. This was just spectacular. Please, everyone, just catch the convert. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you love about it, what you don't love about it. Tell us your opinion on Guy Pearce, what you want us to cover next, and your favorite two girls will come next with a really, really soft episode. So stay tuned. Bye bye.